In the heart of Disneyland's magical tapestry lies a hidden gem, an unassuming corner, often overlooked by the hustle and bustle of the park, one which holds within its walls a treasure trove of memories and nostalgia. The tobacco shop. Yes, nestled among the candy stores and souvenir stands, Disneyland once had a fully operational tobacco shop called Fine Tobacco, a testament to a time when societal norms around smoking were quite different. This shop was a relic of an era where the air at Disneyland was filled with more than just the sweet scent of popcorn and churros. Join us as we rewind the clock on a journey to the early days of Disneyland and unravel the mysteries and allure of the tobacco shop. When Disneyland first opened its gates on July 17, 1955, America's relationship with smoking was vastly different from what it is today. Smoking was ubiquitous, and tobacco products were deeply embedded in American culture. In the mid-20th century, smoking was seen as a symbol of sophistication and relaxation, with popular advertising campaigns often depicting people puffing away with a smile or a glamorous pose. Television programs, including Disney's own Mickey Mouse Club, were often sponsored by cigarette companies. Walt Disney himself, known for his boundless imagination and relentless pursuit of quality, was ironically known to be a chain smoker, though he did his best to keep that away from public view. Or not. Walt Disney's relationship with tobacco was complicated to say the least. As a heavy smoker throughout his life, Walt was rarely seen without a cigarette in his hand. Walt loved a French cigarette called Gitans. They were not common or popular in the US, but they were Walt's favorite from when he was a young ambulance driver while in France during World War I. By having a shop in his park, he had easy access to these cigarettes. The shop carried many different brands of cigarettes from around the world. His personal battle with smoking ultimately contributed to his death in 1966 when he succumbed to lung cancer. However, despite his personal habits, Walt was remarkably conscientious about the image of Disney as a family-friendly brand. For instance, Disney's early television programming was known for avoiding overt cigarette advertising, even though tobacco companies were some of the biggest sponsors of TV shows at the time. The iconic Mickey Mouse, for example, was never depicted smoking, despite smoking being common in cartoons of that era. So why a tobacco shop at Disneyland? In the 1950s, the societal norm allowed for such contradictions. Disneyland was designed to reflect the nostalgia and charm of early 20th century small-town America, and a tobacco shop was simply part of that historical tapestry as it fits into the vision, like a general store or a pharmacy. At the same time, Disney's commercial interests aligned with the broader acceptance of smoking, making the tobacco shop both a nod to the past and a reflection to the present. The public's perception of smoking hadn't yet been tarnished by the grim revelations of its health risks, despite early studies linking smoking to lung cancer emerging in the 1950s. And so there it was, nestled right between the Magic Shop and the Main Street Cinema. Main Street USA was designed to evoke the nostalgia of small-town America at the turn of the century, a time when tobacco stores were a fixture in every town, and so the store blended seamlessly with the other nostalgic storefronts of Main Street. Inside, visitors could find everything they needed for a smoke break, from wooden cigarette pipes, loose tobacco, and even custom-rolled cigars. The store even sold lighters and other smoking accessories, making it a one-stop shop for all your tobacco needs. One of the most iconic features of the tobacco shop was its resident wooden cigar store Indian. For decades, these carved wooden figures stood outside tobacconist shops across America, a marketing tool signaling to passerby that they sold tobacco. At Disneyland, this figure served as a nod to tradition, silently standing watch over the store as families bustled past, adding an authentic, period-appropriate touch to the shop's facade. For many guests, this statue became an unmistakable landmark on Main Street. The Indian statue provided a popular photo opportunity, so much so that another tobacco store and cigar store Indian was added to Frontierland in 1959. This served to manage guest flow as well as provide another area in the park to buy these coveted tobacco products, in addition to the cigarette vending machines around the park. In 1960, the lease was up for the private shop owner, and Disney took over operating the shop. Disney was also planning for another location, Walt Disney World in Florida, including a tobacco shop on Main Street, USA. There isn't as much photographic history of this shop, but it did come with its own cigar store Indian out front. By the 1970s and 1980s, the cultural attitude and public opinion towards smoking shifted dramatically. Medical research in the 1960s had revealed the dangers of smoking, and campaigns to reduce tobacco use started to take hold. Tobacco companies even faced increasing regulations. This shift in public perception was felt at Disneyland too. Although the tobacco shop remained open for several decades, the growing awareness of the health risks associated with smoking eventually led Disney executives to rethink the presence of a tobacco shop in the park. In response to this, Disney began phasing out smoking in certain areas of the park and eventually restricted smokings to designated zones. Also, the company slowly distanced itself from promoting and advertising tobacco-related products, and under the leadership of Michael Eisner, began to focus more heavily on aligning with the growing cultural shift towards health consciousness, particularly for families and children. By the early 1990s, the cultural landscape had changed so dramatically that a tobacco shop on Main Street, USA felt more and more like a relic from a different time. And so, the tobacco shop had to shut its doors for the last time, in 1991 after 36 years of operation. There was no fanfare, no major announcement, just a quiet end to a chapter of Disneyland's history that seemed increasingly out of step with the brand's family-friendly values. It was the end of an era, not just for Disneyland, but for society as a whole, as smoking became increasingly discouraged in public spaces. Anti-smoking campaigns had gained significance over the years. Smoking bans in public places were becoming more common, and the stigma around smoking was firmly entrenched. In 1999, smoking was no longer allowed all through the parks, but instead, designated smoking sections were put into place. 20 years later, Disneyland finally banned smoking completely within the park boundaries in 2019. The tobacco shop on Main Street, USA serves as a fascinating window into a different era, not only for Disneyland, but for American society as a whole. Its existence is a reminder of how cultural norms evolve over time, and how businesses, even those as meticulously crafted and beloved as Disneyland, can't escape the pressures of changing times and evolving social values. In the 1950s, it would have been unimaginable not to have a tobacco store on Main Street, USA. Nowadays, it seems almost unthinkable, a relic of a bygone era. Today, if you stroll down Main Street, USA, there are no traces of the tobacco shop left. Its space has long since been repurposed, but the shop remains a curious footnote in Disneyland's history. In fact, the cigar store Indian that once stood outside the shop now resides in front of the 20th Century Music Company. Though it no longer beckons guests into a world of tobacco, it stands as a quiet tribute to the park's early days. He remains a symbolic reminder of the shop's existence, even as smoking itself was banned from the park. Although it's no longer there, the tobacco shop was very much a part of the original Disneyland experience. Though its doors have been closed for over 3 decades, the tobacco shop remains a fascinating chapter in Disneyland's rich history. It served as a small piece of the puzzle in creating an authentic turn-of-the-century Main Street, giving guests a glimpse into a time when tobacco was as common as ice cream parlors and penny arcades. It's a testament to how the park has evolved, reflecting changes not only in the park's operations, but in society as a whole. In its own way, it contributed to Walt Disney's vision of transporting visitors to another time, a simpler, yet more complicated world. So, the next time you stroll down Main Street, remember, you're walking through a place that has seen many changes, and the fine tobacco is just one of the many stores that helped shape the Disneyland we know today. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, hit that bell button for more deep dives into the history of your favorite Disney attractions.